Shanti, Shanti. Okay, so we were doing Madhusudana Saraswati and the main verse with a lot of again long commentary by Madhusudana Saraswati, who is quoting from Gaudapada Karika in order to explain to us this particular critical verse, which sort of indicates what happens in case the mind again gets distracted from the state of meditation because of some sort of a reappearance of rajas. Because obviously you are a sarva karma sannyasi, you have done the samadhamadi satka sampatti prapti, you have all that, and yet at a very high level of meditation it's quite possible, because if you remember, Patanjali mentions that tat chidreshu pratyantarani sanskarebhyah. That particular sutra he mentions that it's possible that there are a bit of gap, there are few small holes you haven't filled up, and you may have a reappearance of bhuthana or loss of concentration. And if that happens, what? It's like an alert. So if you are doing a certain driving training course, and then you talk to the teacher who's guiding you and imparting the skills in driving, you talk to him about different likelihood, different chances of you suddenly finding yourself face to face with an accident. What should I do if the brake doesn't work? Or suddenly, there's no brake fail as such, but it's not very effective. Or if I have to sort of ride uphill and the road quality is very bad and it's raining, and you ask lots of theoretical questions. And if you haven't asked those questions and you start driving without equipping yourself with how to deal with emergencies, you'll be very hard pressed for finding a quick solution when you don't know what to do. So Bhagavan sort of gives you an alert well in advance. Yato yato nischarati manas sanchalam asthiram tatastato niyamyeta atmanyeva vasam nayet. So whenever the mind again sort of goes here and there, you have to bring it back, re-establish it in Atma, in yourself. And in that context, we were discussing the Gaudapada Karikas, those 5 slokas, 5 verses, very interesting ones. And we have done 3 and a little of 4, and we'll finish that today and move forward. So I'm just reading it so to give it a context. Upayana nigunyat dikshiptam kama bhogayah. Suprasanam laya chaiva tatha kamo layas tatha. Both, whether you have desire or you have a state of sleep, laya and vikshepa, both are enemies of meditation, because they are, one is layatmaka vritti is nidra, and kama janita, out of desire you have a bit of vikshepa and distraction. You're going to the objects of your desire. Dukkham sarvam anusmritya kama bhogan nivartet ajam sarvam anusmritya jatam naiva tupasyati. And this was again explained that whenever you see something as pleasant, is storehouse of pleasure, when you look deeper into it, you'll realize that it contains seeds of unhappiness. And he beautifully explained that why you have to do it, how do you have to, do that sadhana, vairagya abhyasa, and then you have to sort of get rid of this laya, and then you see everything is never born. Whatever you see, it was never born, because these are all appearances, these are projections. What is true? Brahman eva. It manifests at several things. It's like one sun sort of reflects in millions of pots full with water. You see a million suns. This is one. Okay, it's just one sun. Same way, all that you have to control your mind. Visaya gochara pramanadi brityu utpadanena samadhi virodhi tatha layepi. So whether you have vikshepa, which creates a lot of formations in the mind, and that will distract you. Similarly, if you fall asleep, that also takes you away from your goal of meditation and the self. That we had done. Laye sambodhaya chittam. Whenever the mind tends to fall asleep, you have to wake it up. Vikshiptam samayat punaha. And then it sort of, once you sort of wake it up, it wants to run around. Like the mom wakes up the child, son, get up. It's time to go to school. The son gets up, then he goes and washes his face and suddenly forgets everything. He wants to play or watch TV or cartoon show or something. It's quite possible in the early days. Same way the mind runs around, then sakasayam vijaniyat, and then there is an intermittent period of apparent tranquility. It's not tranquility. It's like a normal state, like you're reading a book or you're sitting quietly in an afternoon on the balcony or terrace, and you think that you are in a very good meditative mood. He said, you please understand, this is not free from the hidden forces which will distract you. They are not apparent at this moment. So it's like a virus which has entered the system. It's always there. So be on guard. Don't drop your alertness because you're going to pay a heavy price for it. And then samapraptam na chalayet. But with a lot of effort, when you actually reach that level of equanimity, you have had early, you woke up early and you had a bit of prayer, you took an early bus, you had a breakfast, okay? And then you had a lovely morning, right? You had a morning walk and everything. You should be doing your work. And suddenly you open the TV, there's a cricket match going on. It's quite possible that you want to watch that. That will be a big loss because you have invested in a day in a very positive way. But you don't again disturb the tranquility which you have achieved. Then this one, what we'll do today. No aswadai sukham tatra nisangaha pragyaya bhavet nischalam nischarat chittam eki kuryat prayatnataha. No aswade sukham tatra nisangaha pragyaya bhavet. And we have already discussed that. We were discussing the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, that when you reach this level of sampragyata samadhi, you have a feeling of happiness. It's not that only when you reach kaivalya prapti, when you have the complete manifestation of purushakara vritti, atmakara vritti, then only you will feel happiness. No. A poor man is in a very bad situation, but he earns a little money, is better than what he was yesterday. Similarly, a person who does no meditation, and there's a person who does some meditation, he has some sense of happiness. Similarly, when you reach this level of asampragyata samadhi, you have a sense of happiness, but don't get enamored by it. Why? You remember that particular sloka. Okay? Tasyapi virodhe sarva nirodhat nirvija samadhi. We had discussed this, that whenever you get that, you know, that dharma mega samadhi comes ultimately, but even ritamra pragya, you will get adhyatma prasada. You will have a lot of powers. You will have a lot of siddhis. You have a wonderful feeling in you, but don't get enamored by it. It's a wonderful honeymoon with your spiritual life, your inner life. You feel wonderful, but there's something even beyond this feeling of wonderfulness. Keep moving inwards. So that's what he says in sloka 4. How that is explained? Upayana nigniyat kena iti uchyate. How can I actually control it? Then he explains in this particular sloka, in the 4th one. What does he say? Sorry, that was not one. We have done that. Tatra samadhu parama sukha vyanjakepi sukham na aswadayet. So in this sampragyata samadhi, even if you have a feeling of great happiness, please don't get enamored by it. Don't start relishing it. Eda bantam kalam aham sukhi iti sukha aswadana rupam vrittim na kuryat samadhi bhanga prasangat iti prageva krita vakhyanam. He says, I have already explained to you. Mostly is referring to the long commentary he gave to verse 15 in Bhagavad Gita of this chapter 6. And there he had explained at length that when you reach that level, you have adhyatma prasada at the end of nirvichara samadhi. And when you have that feeling of wonderful peace within, and you have a lot of siddhis, sort of, you know, you have a feeling of benediction, please don't get enamored. That's what he had advised, and there was a long discussion on that. We are not going to again get have digression. We'll stick to the text. So he's saying, "Na kuryat samadhi bhanga prasangat," because he's now having in mind what is samadhi. This is also samadhi. This is sampragyata samadhi, but here by samadhi he's having the goal as part of the discussion. It's like you're saying rice is being cooked. No, it's actually raw rice. So the pilau is being cooked. When you say this, I'm making palau. Don't you say that's how he's saying samadhi bhanga prashangat. Here, that samadhi hasn't happened as yet. You are in sampragyata samadhi state. You want to have kalpitam musha eva ityevam bhavanaya nishango nispriha sarva sukhesu bhave. And then, this buddhi, this particular sampragyata samadhi that you've achieved, that particular beautiful sukham, whatever that you are finding, you're experiencing, you should say, well, but my game isn't over. I haven't reached my destination. And I can know that I'm happy. That means I'm not happy because the texts have told me that there will be a state where I'll not even know I exist. There'll be only pure consciousness. So I haven't reached there. The reading of the spiritual text sort of clarify to us what to believe and what not to believe. That is to read Bhagavad Gita. They just don't look at the commentary, and they have a twisted understanding of the text, and they interpret it the way they want, like the modern gurus. And it's important that we pay attention to the great, Sastriya commentaries, because they put it in a perspective. You know exactly why the text was written like this, what it meant, and what sense we have to make out of it and apply to our sadhana. So it's very important. So what he's saying is that even if you are experiencing, this is real, this is not a joke, you are not seeing a snake in a rope. You are in sampragyata samadhi, you have a feeling of beatitude, a great feeling of benediction, happiness, real. But you must consider that unreal. Why? What is ultimately real has no name and form. And you want to go beyond this identity of yourself as a sadhaka. That also will have to be dropped. So there is a beautiful sentence that you do sadhana using all kinds of methods, but once you reach the destination, the sadhana and everything which you used to reach there, that also do tyaga. Use tyaga to reach there, and once you reach there, even do, this great Nigamananda Mahaprabhu, when he was in Puri, he was doing pan, he was wearing white clothes. He didn't obey any rules. He was a Bidvat Purusha, he was an Atmagyani, he didn't care for anything. So when you reach that level, you're not constrained by anything. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa wasn't wearing any saffron clothes at the ultimate level. He was almost, the complete manifestation of divinity. He didn't bother about it. You look at Sri Aurobindo, he didn't wear bothered by about these questions. So it depends. Even Ramana Maharshi, he wasn't taking any formal sannyas, anything. They were Vidvat sannyasis. So they didn't need any rules and regulations. This is only meant for middle level people or lower level sadhaks, these rules and regulations. At the ultimate level, lower level sadhaks, these rules and regulations. At the ultimate level, you just get connected and they're born with because of sanskara of millions of births. And then athava pragya savikalpa sukhakara vritti rupaya saha sangam parityajet. So he's saying that even if you experience a sense of happiness as a result of your having accomplished sampragyata samadhi, don't get attached to it. Walk beyond it. Right? Natu swarupa sukham api nibrittikena chittena na anubhavet swabhava praptasya tasya bharitum asakyatvat. The beautiful sentence. You know what? The defense lawyer, the questioning mind, which is there in all of us, you will immediately ask, sir, what are you saying? It means that you are saying, Jove Bhuma Tat Sukham. Whatever is that complete, that Bhuma Vidya, we did it yesterday, that is only Sukham, Alpena Na Sukham, Yat Alpam Tat Martyam. That is mortal. That's what you told yesterday. That means when I reach that complete state of being, I'm going to be happy. And that will be Niratisaya Sukham. There will be nothing beyond that. Now you're saying, Tat Sukham Tyajet. Why are you trying to confuse me? On the one hand, you are saying, aspire for that ultimate happiness. And then when I reach the Sampragyata Samadhi, and I have a window of opportunity to sort of have a glimpse of that happiness, how cruel you are. Oh, Acharya, you're saying, don't enjoy. Why? Then he explains. He's saying, look here, you are not being denied an opportunity to experience that ultimate happiness. That ultimate happiness, like earlier he had asked, if I block my mind and stop all distractions, the mind stops to function. Then you are saying, I will enter into Niruddha Samadhi and I will have Atma Darshana. How is that possible? You're saying that I'll block my mind and I'll put to an end all its modalities and functionalities and its modifications and everything. Then you're saying that you'll be able to see God or the Brahman, or you'll become Brahman yourself and you experience great happiness. But to do that, I need to have an active mind, and I'm just putting that to rest. And you're saying how you will experience that. How does that work out? Then he says, understand that. That is something Swarupa Satya. That you cannot block. Like if you block a pot, which is you clean it, there was water or milk, and then you put a lid on it and you close it. What is there inside? The space is there. Can you remove space? No. The space will become self-evident when you remove whatever was put into that particular pot, right? Like if, for example, a person was doing a job, he's a wife or she's a wife or he's a husband, he has relations, he has certain profile, he's in a political party or he's a prime minister and blah, blah, blah. And he has a lot of modular appearances of what he is. You remove him from all these roles and responsibilities. Watch him or her. You can actually get to know his real natural manifest, because so far he was doing different kind of roles. When you remove all this, then you can watch what he does. And in fact, there'll be more chances that you'll find his true self emanating. Similarly, when you block all manifestations of the brain, he's saying, just like Svabhava Praptisya, by its very nature, it will be given to you on a platter once you reach there. Because you are not getting happiness. Your consciousness, which will be free from all kinds of stains and influences, becomes pure consciousness. When you have become that pure consciousness is also truth and bliss. That is Satchidananda Swarupa. That is its very nature. You have only removed the false brands which have been pasted on it. If you move away all the brands and labels which have been put on it, what remains? The pure Satchidananda Swarupa. So you cannot stop happiness from being experienced because you become happiness. You shall not experience any happiness because you shall not be there as an agent. You shall not be there as an individual. You will become pure consciousness itself. And you will not see any difference. It's a wonderful thing. And this cannot be explained in words. Whatever I'm saying based on whatever I'm reading, these are imperfect ways of trying to capture a sukha or jnana. Both are the very nature of that consciousness. And it will appear itself. Evam sarvato nivartya nishchalam prayatnavasena kritam chittam swabhava chanchalyat vishayabhimukhataya. Okay? Vishayabhimukhataya nishcharad bahirnirgachet eki kuryat prayatnataha nirodha prayatnena samye brahmani ekatam nayet. So finally he's saying how to do again and again. He's saying no. He's saying what? Tato tata niyamyetat atmaneva basam nayet. And the fourth sloka was that nishchalam nishcharat chittam. Nishcharat, which is moving around here, there. Eki kurya, do it one. And do that eki kurya in what sense? Do it nishchalam. And how? Prayatnataha, with a lot of effort. And that is what is explained in the last sentence. Evam sarvato nivartya, by blocking it from all sides, nishchalam, prayatnavasena, with a lot of effort, kritam chittam, that mind which has been put to a state of peace. Swabhava chanchalyat, its very nature otherwise is what? That is an adjective there. Swabhava chanchalyat, its very nature is that it will run around. It will jump around. It's like a monkey mind. Vishyabhimukhataya. And then, because why it jumps around? It will go to all the objects of desire. It will go to all the objects he wants to connect with. Nishchara. Then it goes around. It becomes moving. Bahir nirgachet. It goes there. In that patya nirgacha, that manam, that manaha, that chittam, eki kuryat. So make that one, unite it, integrate it, and refocus its attention on the self. Nirodha prayatnena same brahmani ekatam nain. So again, you bring it back to Brahman. That is Patanjali Yoga Sutra. This is Vedanta. So there, they will say only understanding the difference between Purusha and Prakriti gives you liberation. How? It removes the influence of Prakriti. Here, that is not enough. There is a lot of emphasis on Atma Jnana. You get rid of the influence of Prakriti, fine, but Prakriti is not independent. You don't have to get scared of it. You have to see Prakriti and understand Prakriti as an aspect of the Brahman, and the Adhisthana is Brahman Eva. And this is just an aspect of it. Contacting that aspect, it appears as Ishvara, creates this samsara. When you understand this secret, you don't have to fear the Prakriti, okay? Because you are oriented towards the Brahman and you do that surrender, that summation of all your effort by reaching a pure consciousness which is non-different from the Brahman. Yadana liyate chittam na cha vikshipyate punaha aninganam anabhasam nispannam brahma tattada. This is the phalam. This is the last sentence of these whole 5 slokas, where he is explaining what happens, what is that Nirodha Samadhi, what is that Atma Jnana. Yadana liyate chittam, where a person doesn't fall asleep. Remember, that will become nidra. That is the panchamalayatmaka vritti, after the 5 vrittis of the mind. So it's not the place where the mind doesn't fall asleep. There he's distinguishing that samadhi, that Atma Samadhi or Brahma Samadhi, from Susuti. Susuti, you have laya, you have ananda without jnana. There is this false, that false thing, agrahana is there. Viparita grahana while you are awake. You see your sarira is your atma. That is a viparita grahana. Faulty perception that happens during waking state. Also in dream state, you have faulty perception. In deep sleep, there is no faulty perception, but there is lack of perception. There is agrahana. There is no satyagrahana because you are completely asleep. So there is neither faulty perception nor right perception. There is no perception because you are deep asleep, and therefore you are not happy. You are not liberated. You have to be in a waking state, and then only you will experience samadhi, and you will experience that Satchidananda Swarupa. That is Jnana. That is Chaitanya Swarupa. That doesn't happen in deep sleep where there is no Chaitanya. Chaitanya is everywhere. Even in a piece of stone, there is Chaitanya. So far Vedanta is concerned. Something is more luminous, something is less luminous. And that's how we say that this is Jada, this is Sajiva, this is Nirjiva. Otherwise, for Vedantin, consciousness is filling this whole universe. Coming back. So he's saying what? Yadana liyate chittam nacha vikshipyate punah. And then again it doesn't run around. Aninganam. And it, nengate. We had, like for example, a lamp, it doesn't dangle. It's kind of still like a small, it's like a straight line. And it stands and moves upward, that flame. Right? And there's no air to disturb it. The mind has to be like that. It's aninganam anabhasam. And nothing appears in it. No faulty appearances. So there are 2 things. Aninganam anabhasam. 2 things are removed. Nispannam brahma tattada. In that state, you will experience that final thing. Brahman is experienced there. Samapraptam chittam kidrisam iti uchyate. That particular, finally, that samatha, that peace that you achieve in that Brahma Sakshatkara, how to describe it, and he's explaining it. Yadana liyate napi stabdi bhavati. Stabdi, it's like dumbfounded, like in deep sleep, or you're completely fatigued. Things are happening. There's a TV serial going on. Your daughter is calling you, but you don't listen to anything because your mind isn't receiving anything. It doesn't want to respond to anything. That is Stabdi Bhava. No, you are not in that state. You are deep asleep. Like a log of wood, you are sleeping. Somebody knocks at your head, says, wake up. You don't even listen. What's going on, you don't know. Similar, no. Stabdi Bhavati Tamasattva Samyena. Why you are not falling asleep? You are falling asleep because of what? That tamasikata, that tamas, that ignorance, inertia, whatever is there. Samyena, when you have put it to peace, when you have tranquilized it, when you have sort of dissolved that tamas in you. Okay, laya sabdena eva stabdi bhavasya upalakshana. So that laya, that tamasa, that stabdi bhava is kind of indicated there. Nacha vikshipyate punha. Again, it doesn't move around, it doesn't jump around. Na sabdadi akara vrittim anubhavati. In Vedanta, the mind, how do you see a pen? I am seeing a pencil. Okay, so what they explain is that the mind sort of looks, I look at this pencil, so these eyes, the mind sort of travels there, this chitta, and it takes the form of this pencil. Okay, and there is a tadatma samparka, and then this my consciousness kind of takes the form of this pencil, and that's how I understand this is a pencil. That's how they explain it. Okay, it's a little tricky compared to the Nyaya people who will say that this object travels through my eyes, connects with the mind or chitta manas, and then mana atma sanyoga, and then the jnana sort of appears there. There is no jnana as such. Everything is jada, but it appears because of this connectivity, and then I experience this is the pencil. Okay, that's what they will say. But coming back to us, what he's saying is that sabdadi akara. So if you listen to some music, the mind again assumes the form of that music to appreciate what it is. You listen to a bhajan, the mind is full with the bhajan. You are eating sweets, the mind is full of sweets. You're thinking about sweets, the mind is full of sweets. Tadakara vritti. It takes that particular form of anything that connects with. Sabdadi akara vrittim anubhavati. Napi sukham aswadayati. Rajas samyatvena. Rajasatva samyena. Sukha aswadasya api vikshepa sabdena upalakshanat. And then he also doesn't enjoy this Visaya Sukhas and doesn't connect with anything. And even in meditation, the middle level of meditation, whatever relative quietude that he experiences is not relishing it. Relishing doesn't mean he hates it or he's kind of resisting that sort of a feeling. He's essentially looking beyond all this. Purvam bheda nirdesatu prithak prayatna karanaya. So this particular thing that earlier which was mentioned, he's saying that this was in order to explain that you have to have a special, separate effort to reach and maintain this particular samaprapti dasa. Evam laya kasaya bhyam. That kasaya state is there, is the intermediate level between laya and vikshepa, and it's having seeds of vikshepa and laya in that. And that is not a pure state. Don't confuse that with samadhi. Evam laya kasaya bhyam vikshepa sukha aswadabhyam. Vikshepa and sukha. That you are in that kasaya state, you're sitting quietly, mind isn't jumping around, you're not falling asleep. Don't get too elated. This is not samadhi. And therefore, from that laya, when you are feeling, and vikshepa, and kasaya, and sukha swadana, when you are in meditation, all these you have to be careful about. Cha rahitam, aninganam. Okay, when your mind, your consciousness is kind of free from all these problematic areas, aninganam, inganam chalanam, savata pradivabat, laya abhimukha rupam, tad rahita. What is aninganam? He's saying is like this. There's this flame, and it's sort of dangling in the air. He's saying chalana savata pradivabat. When there is air in that particular flame, is kind of dangling in the air. But laya abhimukha tad rahitam, or it falls asleep. Either it will have vikshepa, it will become oriented towards vikshepa or falling asleep. But it will become aningana, means it's in it's burning lamp. It doesn't get extinguished. Then it doesn't dangle in the air. So it's like a straight line. Means the flame is alive. It's luminous. The lamp is luminous. So you're talking about an undisturbed luminosity. That is what is the point. Tad rahitam nivata pradipa kalpam. That means there's a lamp which is burning in the absence of any movement of air. The consciousness is stable like that. Anabhasam. What is the meaning of anabhasam? Na kechid visayakarena abhasate iti etat. So it doesn't take the form of any object of perception. It doesn't think about Swedes or cricket match or a friend, or you have got a quarrel with somebody, anything negative or positive, raga or dvesha. It doesn't experience either raga or dvesha. Kasaya, sukha aswadayor ubhaya antarabhava utta eva. So whether kasaya, that intermediate stage, or sukha aswadana, when you are doing meditation, some pragyata samadhi, both are kind of included here. You have to also go beyond that. Yada evam dosa chatushtaya rahitam, where you are free from laya, vikshepa, kasaya, and sukha aswadana, in that initial level of meditation, some pragyata samadhi. Rahitam chittam bhavati tada tat chittam brahma nispannam samam brahma praptam bhavati ityarthaha. When your mind is free from these four enemies, laya, vikshepa, kasaya, and sukha aswadana, even during upasana or meditation, whatever. Remember, it's a very hard task. Then you can say that he reaches there. Etadrisasya yoga sritya pratipaditaha. Then he's quoting from Kathopanishad 2, 3. There are two verses taken, both 11th and 12th. Let's read them. Yada panchavati jnanani manasa saha buddhischana vichestati tamahu paramam gatim tam yogam iti manyante sthiram indriya dharanam apramattastada bhavati yoga hi pravabhapyayo. Okay, let's make sense of it. Yada pancha vatisthante. Pancha means pancha jnanendriyas. Yada pancha vatisthante jnanani. All this jnana indriya, and you can also include the karma indriyas, whatever. Manasasaha. So with the help of the mind, when you can actually establish them, concentrate them at one place, buddhischana vichestati, and the buddhi, the ahankar, and as the buddhi also, the intellect, the ability, the intelligence, when you are also kind of not put that to motion, you are making them to stabilize, not in rest, that will be laya. No, you're putting them to a stable moment. You are quietening them, but they are all alert. Tam ahuhu paramam gatim. That is the best thing. That is the paramagati. Here, gati will mean a kind of destination to reach, and we will explain that. Paramam gatim. Tang yogam iti manyan. You have to stabilize this whole process and hold your indriyas in your control, your sense organs in your control. Apramattas. Pramatta means what? Pramatta means pra-mad-ta. Okay, so it's something. Pramatta is something which is free from a sense of responsibility, free from it's kind of a sense of responsibility, free from it's kind of that must sort of a feeling. So apramatta is actually savadhana, careful, attentive, alert, mindful. The best word will be mindful. So apramattah, apramattas tada bhavati yogahi. There the mind, the yoga becomes truly mindful. Yoga here will mean your whole sadhana, your yatna and everything will become truly mindful. Prabhava apyayo. Prabhava means what? Here, this prabhava means whatever manifest and srishti or utpadana. And apyaya means what? Nasa or laya. So prabhava and apyaya. You can say that vikshepa and laya. No, in not that sense. There are several ways in which this has been interpreted. One thing is prabhava apyaya, that meditation when you do, one interpretation is whatever quietude you are attaining, whatever quietude sort of manifests in you as a result of your sadhana can break any moment. It's kshanasthai. And therefore, you have to be extremely careful and you have to be apramatta. You have to be mindful to retain it. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it would be that Ishta prabhava, anishta apyaya. Whatever is your desire, what's your goal? To reach Nirudha Samadhi, Asampragyanta Samadhi, Atmakyana. That is Ishta. That's what you are. Ishta means what? Whatever you're desiring, aspiring for. What is Anishta? What you haven't aspired for is what? Vikshepa, loss of meditation, right? So that is Nasa. That is your Dhyana Nasa, Ekagrata Nasa. That is Apyaya. So you can also look at it. So basically, it will mean that you remember that sloka was there. What is yoga? Sanyoga, Viyoga. It was there, right? So you are essentially, by appear will mean what? It is Sanyoga, Viyoga. The tendency of your mind to get entrapped in external objects of desire and perception, you have to kill it, remove it, right? Suppress it, diminish it, quieten it, dissolve it. And what, Prabhava, what you would like to manifest? You would like to manifest self-awareness and consciousness. So, etan mulakam eva yoga chittavriti nirodha iti sutram. That particular important sloka of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, yoga chittavriti nirodha, in the very first chapter. Tasmad yuktam tato tato niyamyetat atmanyeva basam nayad iti. Therefore, Bhagavan in this sloka says that whenever the mind sort of gets a little distracted, have patience, bring it back. Then let's go to the next sloka. Evam yoga bhasa balat atmanyeva yoginaha prasamyati manaha. But in saying, in this is kind of yoga sadhana through which our the meditators sort of put their mind to a moment of peaceful reconciliation and establishment of the consciousness in the self, and they achieve supreme quietude and self-awareness. However, if you remember why Bhagavan mentioned the earlier sloka, again let's look at it. There has to be some purvapara prasanga. Not a single sloka in Bhagavad Gita, many of them are kind of interrelated. And to make sense of it, you have to do first you look at the previous sloka and then you read it. Then it will make better sense. Yato yato nischarati. That means, and why the mind might move around? Because of some rajas. Because rajas might manifest. There is not a state of being till you have Atmajnana where Sattva, Tama, Rajas are not there. As I was telling you, there is an office desk and there are 3 people working there 24 hours. You have 8-hour shifts. There's one computer. There are 3 passwords. There is one desk, but there are 3 passwords. And these 3 guys do 3 shifts. They log into the same computer and work. It looks like this office is being run by one guy. Actually, there are 3 guys. Sometimes the Sattva is sitting there. Sometimes the Rajas is sitting there. Sometimes the Tamas is sitting there. Remember, one computer, one desk, one office. And they're all looking alike from a distance. And you think this one guy is managing it. The other guys are not dead. When Sattva is the boss of that office, Rajas and Tamas will just appear after a while. Unlike that office, which has 8-hour shifts, in us, the Rajas and Tamas, depending on how we play with them and how much space we give them, they will continue. They'll become the boss. In some cases, out of 24 hours, some people, Tamas might be controlling the office for 20 hours. Sattva maybe for half an hour, 10 minutes. Or maybe Rajas and Tamas together dominate the body, the mind, the consciousness for 22 hours. Sattva maybe 2 hours. And some people maybe Sattva 12 hours. Rajas 6 hours and Tamas 6 hours. Okay, so this is how, depending on what sort of a person is Raja Pradhana or Sattva Pradhana, when he becomes completely Sattva Pradhana, which dominates because of dhyana and prarthana, everything, when Rajas and Tamas become near invisible, they don't become absent, and therefore Rajas can manifest. And if it does manifest, the mind will start moving. That is a danger. Now, in this sloka, he's saying what? When you have completely controlled the Rajas and you have quietened it, you cannot remove it. Remember this. You will not be able to remove it. The moment you break your meditation, you enter samsara again. Slowly, they will come back. You have to accept them. You have to make peace with them. But you have to train them, make them behave, then you are happy. So what he says, and they become very powerless for an Atmajnani. They will do their role and he keeps smiling because he's not connected with any of these 3 guys. He's kind of a, he's the owner of the company who has resigned as the CEO. He's no more involved. He's the Atmajnani. He is very interesting. He's like a CEO who owns the company but doesn't sit in the board meetings anymore. He's the Atmajnani. Everything happens. He knows everything. Doesn't get involved in anything. Here in this sloka, he's saying, once you have controlled your rajas, you you have a better sense of how to lead your life, and this sloka deals with it. Prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upeiti santa rajasam brahma bhuta makalmasham. Prashanta manasam. So as a result of this meditation, he has brought back the mind, and therefore he's become prashanta manasam. His mind is, you know, comprehensively peaceful. Prashantam, prakarshena, pra upasarga, it means prakarshena, you know, completely happy, very peaceful. Prashanta manasam. His mind is very peaceful. He enam yoginam sukham uttamam upeiti upagachati. This particular, he doesn't run after any happiness. In fact, he is advised to dump any desire to have sukha aswadana, experience of happiness, which he might feel tempted to taste during some pragyata samadhi. He is advised to dump that, to ascend further and experience a sampragyata samadhi and atmajnana ultimately. And therefore, here what is being said is that this yoginam sukham uttamam upeti. He doesn't run after any happiness. The greatest, the most blissful experience follows him, goes to him. That means what? It descends on him. It happens to him. He doesn't look for it. That is the beauty of it. It's like you're looking for a job, and then there's a situation where people are looking for you. Or there are it happens in life. Like you would be looking for a house, and there'll be a moment where so many project guys will be calling you up. Would you like to buy a house? It can happen like that, right? So here, no more sadhana. He has qualified. He's accomplished whatever is there to accomplish. Now sukham uttamam upeti tam yoginam enam yoginam upeti upagacchati. Santa rajasam, and there are two adjectives from him. One, what sort of person he is. Why uttamam sukham is descending on him? Because he's santa rajasam. He's santa rajasa. He has quieted, he has flattened, he has dissolved, he has dealt with rajas. He has won the battle. Okay, santa rajasam. Then akalmasam, and there is no stain in him. The consciousness is free from any purva sanskara. No desires, no semblance, no vestigial impressions of past desires are there in his consciousness. Akalmasam. That fellow is Brahma Bhutam. Uttamam Sukha has to go, because why? He's already Brahma Bhuta. Somebody fights an election and he wins 300 seats. There's a lot of discussion. Can he form the government? He has to do alliances. Okay, maybe this party may not support, then he'll struggle. What if the president invites somebody else? This kind of TBD debates we have, and then somebody manages to get more than 282 seats, like Rajiv Gandhi in 84, or Mrs. Gandhi after 1980 elections, or you had this new government in 2014. So they had an absolute majority. One party gets full majority. Then what happens? The president sort of calls him. He has no option. Nobody opens his mouth because he becomes the prime minister. Why? He's already the prime minister, having got a massive mandate. Same way. Because he's already Brahma Bhuta. He Brahmavid Brahmiva Bhavati. He has already reached there. He has become that. And therefore what happens? All the happiness, all the glorious luminosity, all that we dream about in the text, about what it is to be like there, all those things shower on him. He doesn't have to look for anything. That's the meaning of this thing. These kinds of sentences are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and many other spiritual texts. You know why? In order to motivate us. Stutyartham, because it's not so easy, by the way. These yogas and all, and Madhusudana Saraswati and others will finally say, no, these are mentioned in order to motivate, because it doesn't happen so easily, but it's a beautiful thing and it's very motivating. Now let's look at some of the commentaries, and I'm just not looking at because I'm looking at the text. So Shankaracharya, I'm looking at another website for the Tikas. Prashanta manasam prakarshena santam manaha yasya saha prashanta manasah. prasantamanaha. Who is prasantamana? A person whose mind is comprehensively, extremely happy, peaceful. He is prasantamana. Tang prasantamanasam. And to that fellow, enam yoginam, he is the yogi. Sukham uttamam niratisayam upaiti. That niratisaya sukha, that means there is no sukha, there is no happiness which surpasses, which can sort of bypass this happiness. It's like the most glorious, most intense. I mean, there are no words to describe it. So you have reached there. There's nothing beyond it. Upaiti upagacchati santarajasam prakshina mohadi klesa raja rajasam ityartha. So a person, his rajas has been put to rest. And how that's possible? And Bhagavan Shankaracharya has explained, because his moha, his attachment, has become very thin because he's doing yoga. Prakshina moha, because his attachment, his desire, his craving has become completely thin. It's like a almost dry river in the summer. It's like a small straight line or a dangling line there. It's very thin, right? It's like a small drain in the summer. The same river swells in the monsoon. Similarly, he's whatever, attachment or whatever, except that he has to hold his body, he has to breathe, he has to take a bath. He has no attachment to anything. So because of that, he is prashanta rajasam. Okay, Brahma Bhutam. And what does it mean, Brahma Bhuta? No, here he's saying by Brahma Bhuta, we have to assume because he hasn't died, he may have corona, he may have some problem, he will still buy an air ticket and stand in a queue, do check-in. Why? Because he's Jivana Mukta. He still has the body, his body and all phenomenal reality of his existence will have pluses and minuses of a biological existence, which applies to all of us. But at the level of consciousness, he has the benefit of Atmic Jnana, which others don't have. And because of that self-awareness, he is not perturbed by whatever is happening. Unlike in case of others who get super excited, get super angry, become super sad, because of small things which come and disturb them, because they don't have the benefit of that self-awareness. But he is Jivana Mukta. Jivana Muktam Brahmeva Sarvam Ityevam Nishchayavantam. Who is Jivana Mukta? What kind of thoughts he has? Brahmeva Sarvam. Everything is Brahman. All these people are there, but he has no Bheda Buddhi. He doesn't have hatred, anger, attraction, aversion, nothing. He doesn't experience. He's peaceful, he's smiling all the time. Nishchayavantam Brahmabhutam, akalmasham, and free from any papa. Dharma dharmadi varjitam. He doesn't have any papa punya. Papa punya comes out of what? Craving, attachment. I want to do this. Once you have a sankalpatmaka buddhi, there is karma bandha. That we have discussed earlier. He doesn't see himself as a karta. He has no sankalpatmaka buddhi. And therefore, he is free from the load of karma. And we have studied what happens to the Jibban Muktas, papas that are committed through him without his knowledge. It is the people who hurt him, the people who misbehave with him, speak against him, these papas goes to them. And what happens to his punyas? The punyas goes to his disciples and other people who are serving him. So the papa punyas of this guy, his inheritance is going to people who are either hurting him or helping him. That is how the text mention about it. And this, I just wanted to read the beautiful short explanation which Ramanuja has given here. What he says is beautiful. Prashanta Manasam is what? Atmani Nishchalam Nischala Manasam. That is Prashanta Manasa. It can be infinitely happy and peaceful. Only that mind which is established in the self. Why? Because if it's established anywhere else, that is not the infinite destination. And therefore, there'll be some limitation. It might think about a particular deity, a religious identity, or God, or anything. That is not complete faith. When it is established in the Parama Purusha, the Paramatma, without name and form, and the highest thing, of course, he's a theist interpreter of the Bhagavad Gita. So he will say Krishna, Parameshwara, not a problem. Whosoever you're focusing on, ultimately you are hitting that Brahmaneva. So prasanta manasam atmani nischala manasam atmani asta manasam, where his mind, his functions, everything dissolves in the self. Tata eva hetoho dagdha asesa kalmasam. Because he is there, beautiful, you see, because he is a devotee. What he says, all these papas, all your sins, who is Lord Krishna, Bhagavad says, is a papashura. He steals his butter from different cream and butter, right? And curd and whatever, from all the gopis' houses. Do you know actually what is the metaphoric meaning of it? He's stealing their papas of his bhaktas. He steals their sins because he wants to liberate them. So Krishna is kind of a stealer. He's kind of a thief of our ignorance. Who is the thief of ignorance? Who is the thief of darkness? Light is the thief of darkness. Because when light comes, it steals all darkness. It's a beautiful expression. Similarly, Lord Krishna steals our sins. He's a thief, right? And therefore, Lord Shiva is also kind of addresses Taskaraya Namaha. And he's also a thief of our sins. God is compassionate. He steals our sins so that our darknesses from our consciousness, they vanish. Light is the thief of darkness, isn't it? And Dagdha Sesa Kalmasam, Asesa Kalmasam Tateva Santaradasam, Vinasta Rajo Gunam Tateva Brahmabhutam, So Surupena Abasthitam, Enam Yoginam Atmanubhava Rupam Uttamam Sukham Upeti, He iti Hetau Uttama Sukha Rupam Upeti Ityarthaha. So he beautifully, what he did compared to Shankaracharya, if I sort of compare this with what Shankaracharya did, he brings in that beautiful rasa of devotion. And he sort of explains that when you actually surrender, the critical word for him is prapatti, saranagati. You surrender and sort of be in front of light. Don't get scared of darkness. Once you are in front of light, then darkness, by its very limited nature, cannot do much to you. That is the beauty of it. So this is what we have finished, the basic meaning of sloka 27. And we will do that and we will go to the next sloka, which has a longer commentary by our great scholar Madhusudana Saraswati tomorrow. We sort of are on time, so I'll stop the streaming on YouTube and we can have interactions in the Google Meet.